Okay, into street talk then. I'm looking forward to this one. We had some good Corrie this week. It was, on the whole, pretty darn good, wasn't it? And I would say that it got better as the week went on, which is always good when you're inside in a Friday night recording a podcast. So let's get started.
I have to say, when we got to today's episode and we got Paul's scenes in the hospital, I was thinking, it's going to be another one of these episodes that just leaves you devastated over the weekend. But they did such a great job, didn't they?
I don't know how they do it. They said right from the beginning that they were going to have the mixture. They're still going to have some funny elements in this. They were still going to keep us smiling and laughing all the way through, and they absolutely are. It was perfect choosing Jonathan Harvey to write the second half of today's episode as well. But how do you get such genuine comedy out of such heartbreaking, tragic scenes? I don't know.
It was so brilliant.
Really, really good. I'm looking forward to chatting about that. So yeah, we are going to start off with the poor Paulie Paul storyline, and then I've got Peter out ? As the second line, because he wants to go to sailing on around Italy, doesn't he? So then we have got the Dylan deliverance.
Give me a bit of blanket.
What? Sorry,
I've got cold feet. Look.
What do you want?
A bit of blanket.
Sorry.
You just stolen all of the blankets.
I haven't. I got it
yes,
first anyway. Right, we've got the Ryan and Cheating story, we've got the Papa Dumb story, and there's a little bit of Amy as well, which wasn't even a story, so it doesn't get a storyline title, but also because I couldn't think of one. But Gemma, you volunteered before we started recording
I'm your shoulder
today
volunteer.
Too. You shoulder volunteered to shoulder the burden of Paul's storyline.
Do you know what?
So, what?
Shoulder volunteers has ruined the word volunteer for me now. I was listening to a podcast earlier, and they said the word volunteer, and I was like, shoulder volunteer? I hate it.
It's a really poor name, isn't it?
But it's really catchy somehow.
It is. How do you make a catchy charity
Just
name
make
out
it
of
really
shoulder volunteers?
dorky.
It's so dorky. It's perfect for Amy's charity. We can't talk about that yet, Gemma. That's going to be in about 2 hours' time. Poor Paulie Paul is going to kick us off. I have got all the Gemma and Joseph stuff in here as well, which isn't really the same story, but it kind of is, and there's a bit of crossover, and I'd already put it all together, and I couldn't be bothered to separate it out and think of a storyline title, to be honest. So, Gemma,
yes.
What has been going on with poor Paulie Paul this week?
On Monday, Paul is going to get assessed for his PIP, which is the Personal Independence Payment. And I like this scene because Izzy came along and she gave him some advice.
Yeah, but this is what I wanted more of in this story, and there maybe hasn't been as much as they could have done. But having Izzy was in it a fair bit this week, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was.
She was going on strike in the factory as well.
Yeah. Anyway, she's been an activist. So Izzy says, "Don't play the hero. Tell the truth. Don't tell them how you feel on your best day. Tell them how you feel on your worst day. Otherwise, you're going to get nothing." I thought that was great.
Because absolutely true.
Paul's obviously really proud, and it makes me so sad and embarrassed at this country to know that people... It goes against our nature, like in this country, to complain or say bad...
Well, no, we're supposed to keep a stiff upper lip, aren't we?
Like, it's like whenever I go to the doctor's like, "Hello, how are you?" And I'm like, "I'm fine, how are you?" They're like, "No, why are you here?" "Well, I don't like to complain."
I had to go to the doctor's today because I had to get a blood test, and I must have told you this. The nurse said, You're right with needles.
Never say you're not.
I said, "No, I'm a massive wimp. I don't like needles at all. I'm not going to look." And she's like, "Okay then." She really rammed it in there.
Never tell them that this happens to me. Never tell them because they panic.
I do. I trusted her, and she really hurt my arm. We've both had the call up from the doctors. Did we? I can't remember whether we mentioned this on the.
This is not relevant to the story.
No, now we're 40. We've got to go in for health checks because we're old and falling apart apparently. So this was my preliminary blood test before the doctor tells me that I need to probably stop eating quite so much chocolate and maybe exercise.
At all.
At all, at least.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, irrelevant.
So what I was saying, it goes against your nature to, and it's embarrassing, especially for Paul, somebody like Paul, who's very, he's got a manly job, he's self-reliant. Well, he's a builder. Yeah. It's manly.
But he also does wear unicorn onesies, so I think that cancels it out.
Doesn't mean that you don't have pride. It means you've got more pride in yourself.
Can you just imagine if they had a wear your jammies to work day at Ed's Builders and he turns up like that.
Right. Well,
because they do that. You wouldn't be able to get the helmet on over the horn.
Let's not go any further. I'm trying to make a point here.
Sorry.
I just think that this whole story has been done really well.
Oh, it really, really has.
With the way that he's navigating things and having to be really vulnerable in front of strangers, even if they are medical professionals. That's hard.
Yeah, this story has been superb. I said on the shorts, I think I did, I can't remember whether it was the tape we used, that this for me is, there's going to have to be something absolutely stellar to come along in the next month and a half or so to stop this being the story of the year.
This is the story of the year.
It doesn't, but it's weird because it doesn't seem to be the one that Corrie is pushing as the story of the year. There's been so much put into the acid attack.
And we've got, Carter brewing, haven't we?
Oh yeah, but this has been it. And with a lot of the other stories, even though there has been some good stuff, I enjoyed elements of the acid attack story, the stalking story. Amy's story with Aaron was superb in parts. But each of those other stories, I could kind of point out a few bits that didn't quite work for me. But this is just going above and beyond my expectations. Okay, listen back to the beginning of the year and I'm having a moan and a whinge about Paul, and it's like, oh, he's such a do-gooder, I don't like him. But now it's like, I'm such a Paul champion, but now we know that we've only got him for another 6 to 12 months.
I don't think
or however long it takes to get to Britain's Got Talent week, I'm going to say. Or maybe Easter. Now that
religious.
now that he's found his newfound faith.
I don't think being religious makes you more likely to die at Easter, but maybe in fiction.
Well, it worked for Jesus.
I wouldn't call Jesus religious, though.
What? Yeah, what?
Because it's like saying a fish is wet. Do you know what I mean?
Just goes without saying.
Kind of.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
It's part of the cause.
Yeah, no,
right.
Why
are we getting so sidetracked?
I don't know.
So
you were talking about it being really embarrassing for him, and he wants to be proud, and he doesn't want to.
I'm not saying he should be embarrassed.
No. But Izzy was right in what she said, and then they had the scene where he was online talking with the woman doing his assessment.
That's
didn't
right. Yeah, and they're trying to again downplay things with humour, but it got kind of. It got really personal and intense, and she was friendly but quite cold. What would you say that? Detached.
Oh yeah, she's
got
what she needs
to ask.
She
got to ask him questions, and making all the jokes is fine, but it doesn't.
You could tell he was squirming a bit when he was saying, I can't really get dressed on my own. Can't pour my cereal. Can
you go to the toilet? These things you don't want to be talking about, but. No. Anyway, Joseph comes round and they play football games.
Yeah, some FIFA. I don't know what that was about. I know Joseph became a bit more of an important character later in the week, but was this just to remind us that their characters are linked so that what Gemma was going through made sense? I don't know.
Maybe we were supposed to go, why is he not at school? Because he wasn't at school.
He wasn't at school, was he?
So he's been bunking off.
Yeah.
On Wednesday, Paul has a coughing fit when he has a glass of water and says it went down the wrong way. But as we all know on Coronation Street, no one's ever sick or says anything.
No one's ever sick and has a cough apart from Stu, unless there's something. This is why when Stu had his cough,
exactly.
We're like, he's dying. How long's he got left? 6 to 12 months.
No, Go on.
Oh no, I agree. As soon as Paul started having that cough, it was like, well, the warning bells started a ringing.
I just wanted to say I got pulled up on two things for
pulled up.
Yeah, one was insisting that Courtney was pregnant.
Oh yeah, I've got about that in the feedback section later.
Sorry everybody. You're right. She was trying to get out of doing an
I knew that, but I forgot when we were recording last week's episode. Like when we watched it, I was like, I know that she's not sick, and I was so insistent. In the moment last week when we were talking about it, I couldn't actually remember why she was sick.
It's because I've got such a forceful personality.
It is. I daren't go against you. But...
The other thing was saying that Peter and Toya were definitely going to some kind of murderer support group because they weren't calling it an AA meeting. They were calling it a meeting. And lots of people told me that is what you say. That's the lingo.
Well, I didn't know
You don't go, I'm going to my Alcoholics Anonymous meeting.
Well, we're going to have to rename that classic comedy Corrie scene, Peter and Blanche at the meeting.
The meeting.
Yeah, and then it'll just make it, we go, what meeting? Oh, yeah.
Oh, that one. Right, so anyway, sorry everybody. I know it's really annoying when you're listening to a podcast and someone's being thick.
It's all right.
I don't know how you put up with it, really.
Corners, we're not infallible.
Okay. So, this is where everything turns quite serious, because as soon as Paul says, I had a coughing fit, the nurse immediately, like, alarm bells go off, and...
Well, that's when Todd should have turned up and given him a coffin fit.
No.
Because he's going to need one soon.
So, but
Bernie's there as well. She turns up just to see how he's doing, and because she wants to know about his money that's coming.
Oh,
his
sorry, I
money.
totally skipped forward to the bloody today. No, he has a coughing fit, and that's it until Friday.
No, he has 2 coffin fits on
okay,
Wednesday.
but do you see what I'm saying? I totally skipped to Fridays.
That's okay.
Sorry,
it was
everyone.
a good episode today.
We literally just said...
Stop apologising.
That I am not infallible. Believe it or not. Anyway, Bernie comes in and she's asking him how long is it going to be till he gets this PIP money, and it's going to be 3 months. Joseph's skiving off school, definitely not skiving, he's too sick to go in. Bernie's in the precinct, she's meeting up with Big Garth.
Yes, Big Garth was in it this week. That was a big surprise. So I can't remember the name of the actor now. Victor, Vincent, Vinny, something like that. But I think he's great. I loved him on Goodnight Sweetheart. But it's been a good few years since we've seen Big Garth. But they've mentioned him, and it's usually felt like, well, he's never going to show up again. He's just going to be a character that they mention because him. He's a named character, a bit like, Tommy Orpington gets mentioned but doesn't often show up. He does sometimes. I really wasn't expecting to see him again, so that was lovely.
So he's meeting up
bigger
with
than ever.
Bernie in the precinct and telling her about people aren't buying the laptops, and she's trying to get him to sell them, and they exchange some cash and they talk about dropping the price, and we see them getting photographed.
You're skipping ahead. You're doing.
Because I'm what?
Yeah, you're remembering the key moments.
I'm remembering.
They don't even exchange any
happen.
cash at this point.
Sorry.
They're just talking about it and saying, "Let's get some cheap laptop sales."
All right, so
Bernie needs the cash now.
Paul is choking again later, and he says, "It's official. I've got a drinking problem," which is funny. And Billy says, "Don't worry. Just make sure you mention this at your speech and language appointment, which is tomorrow." Gemma, you donut. Meanwhile, the actual Gemma, Coronation Street Gemma, decides to take Joseph to the hospital because she can't get a GP appointment. This is like the first time on Coronation Street someone's not been able to immediately get... Now, once she's concerned...
Yeah, that is
She's
true.
like, emergency, the GP won't see me immediately.
I think Dr. Gaddis must just have a photo of her in the room saying,
Don't let this woman in.
Yeah, don't serve this person. Do not...
Don't serve this woman.
What do you call it when you see somebody?
See them.
Do not see this person. That just makes me think of Gaddis walking down the street with her eyes closed.
Like
going,
just holding her hands up like
whatever,
blinkers, going, if I don't see her, she can't talk to me.
But maybe she saw her eating once with her mouth open, and that's just like, I never want to look at that woman again.
But at least she's got very good tonsils. So she tries to Gemma tries to contact Bernie to look after the quads, but Bernie is too busy. And I gave you a bit of a tip off that this was going to happen. He's being photographed accepting money from Big Garth by some people who I assume are not paparazzi.
See, they were doing it very flagrantly, just in the middle of the play park at the precinct, weren't they?
I am
like,
surprised.
Here, have a wad of cash, Bernie.
I'm going to tell you that if you drove up with 2 people taking photos of a children's playground around here, you'd probably get dragged out of your car and beaten to death.
Yeah.
So it's a good job that Weatherfield's a bit more high class, isn't it?
That's a really good point. Whether anybody saw him photographing this play park and was like, I think we need to call the police.
There's a pervert taking photos of a man and a woman, though.
Yeah, and that's
Maybe
right.
it's
And the police is like, don't worry, it's one of ours.
Bernie, then we find out why they were taking photos, because they arrest her outside the tram station for handling stolen goods. So Swain takes her into the interview room, and she's got Joel, the bland solicitor, and he's trying to tell them they don't have any evidence. And Swain says, well, we do. We've been following you about for a while. And Bernie's like, well, you ain't got no hard evidence. You got to let me go. So they do release her, and Billy and Paul are suspicious because she's trying to kind of brush it aside and being a bit too energetic and cheerful. And she's like, no, everything's normal and fine. Don't worry about it. Then Gemma comes home with Joseph from the hospital, and she thinks they've been fobbed off. So she's Googling symptoms and saying that there's definitely something wrong with him. And then she talks to Chesney later on, and Chesney's not concerned at all because nothing bothers Chesney. He's like on some kind of mood stabilizer that suppresses all emotions, or he's been replaced by a what they called on Star Trek.
I don't know. I don't watch Star Trek.
Vulcan. He's a Vulcan. So, he just doesn't seem to have emotions. He's like, who, what, so what?
This is obviously a storyline about Gemma. I can't remember what it's called because it's not Munchausen's anymore.
Facetious disorder imposed upon another.
Yeah.
Factitious disorder.
That's it. Yes, factitious disorder. That's the one.
Facetious. That's what we've got. Facetious disorder. It's not.
I don't know whether this little bit of the story is necessarily needed.
It's not that. It's just. I think it's a bit. We'll talk about it in a minute.
Okay.
It's not that though.
She's convinced there's something wrong with Joseph, and Chesney can see
she believes
there clearly
that
isn't.
There's something wrong with him, so it's not factitious disorder, and she's not doing it maliciously.
No.
So anyway,
she's being a bit hypochondriac.
On behalf of
Joseph,
So, Chesney's not concerned, and Gemma's like, well, you're not making out I'm hysterical. Later on, Bernie tells Dev what's happened, and he's like, why are you getting involved in this again? And she says, look, this is nearly the end of it. I just need to go to see the police, and that will be the end of it. And Dev's really not comfortable about this, but he's not.
Dev was notable by his absence in today's episode, wasn't he? He probably wasn't needed.
I don't think we wanted him as well.
I mean, they decided in the end for Friday's episode to have Abi be Bernie's confidant, and that could have easily been Dev, but choosing Abi was absolutely
we know that
the right way to go for it.
Jimmy Harkishin can deliver incredibly powerful.
Oh, he would have been brilliant, but I am a bit of an Abi fan.
Well, it's something about the fact that they both were she'd faced the Bernie's worst fear, which is losing a child.
Yeah, that's true.
So, on Friday.
Back to Monday.
Well, it says morning preparations, and I read it as Monday. Morning preparations at the flats. There's an insinuation that something happened last night.
I was really confused watching this, and it's not unusual for me to miss really important goings on in Coronation Street, and I was like, what did I miss on Wednesday's episode? Because they're saying something happened last night, but I think we weren't supposed to.
I think it was Corrie after dark.
We were not supposed to know what they were talking about until a few scenes later.
Yeah. So in a cafe, Billy invites David because he and Paul are having breakfast, and Billy's like, David, come over and chat with us, please. And then the bishop starts texting, I think, or emailing or whatever, saying, I want to talk to you later. Oh no, it's the same time as Paul's speech therapy, and Paul says, oh, don't worry, I'll be okay, you go sort everything out. So Billy rushes off. I don't know why he's tidying the house in the morning when the bishop's coming in the afternoon. What is in that house that's...
Well, we saw from their bathroom today, which was very spacious, I thought, for the amount of square footage I imagine that flat had. So maybe it is a bit TARDIS-like in there.
Maybe he's just got the music room's a state. Well, they did have a piano at one point, didn't they?
Yeah, but they had it in the lounge, so they clearly don't have a music room.
Well, obviously they're like, it's too much. There's not enough room in the music room for this extra piano. I'm not going to get rid of the baby grand. So anyway, so David's like, why is Paul being weird? What's going on?
Why is Billy being weird?
Why is Billy being weird? Sorry.
Why are you being weird? Why are you sitting in a wheelchair?
What's going on with you? I've missed something. Sorry, I haven't been watching it. Why did he want me to come over so bad? It seems like he's really awkward around you all of a sudden. And Paul admits to David that there was... They tried to get amorous with Billy last night, but he got rejected. And... I don't know that you've written this down, but David then talks to him about what it was like with Shona. Like, there was this kind of...
Oh, yeah, no, I didn't write that.
I can't remember what he said, but it's kind of like...
He was talking about after Shona got shot in a box.
Well, she did change personality, so it was a bit strange.
Yeah. And it was, wasn't it? Because she became a lot more childish. She was more infantile, wasn't she?
But Paul's still the same person. That's the thing.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of couples probably go through this because your body is changed from something. Well, it's changed into some kind of strange medical. Like, it's kind of alien to you when your body starts needing medical attention, and you're not used to it. It becomes very strange, and you might maybe start feeling detached, and especially if your partner's going through it. You're worried, am I going to hurt you? Are you?
Well, yeah, exactly. I imagine while you're in the moment, as it were, you'd be thinking things that would put you off your stroke.
Or like, is he okay?
Yeah.
Or he's not. He can't do what he used to be able.
No, but that makes it sound more selfish.
But
that's
I think no. But sometimes you are. Everyone is.
I just think that I wouldn't be able to.
I don't think it's a bad
get
thing.
It out of my head. And that would ruin the mood somewhat. But I don't know how much of what Paul was thinking Billy was imagining. Or what
he's worried that he doesn't fancy him anymore.
Yeah, and Billy makes it clear that that's absolutely not the case.
But I don't think he's wrong to have worried about it, because I can imagine there's histories full of great, in inverted commas, great men who had sickly wives that they then ran off and cheated on.
Yeah.
Because they were too ill.
Yeah. Women's problems, Carla?
Oh, yeah. Right, so...
Yeah, no, I imagine that Paul has been thinking for a while, well, eventually Billy is going to stop fancying me because I'm going to be some kind of, withered wreck, and maybe now's the time. So I think it's natural for him to have been concerned, waiting for a moment like last night, which I guess was just something small, but maybe it was made to be something a bit bigger in Paul's mind.
It's something you would worry about.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Ed and Chesney are talking. I don't know why.
They're just in the shop.
And
Ed's like, I'm gonna be in this. I've got a big scene later on in Friday's episode, so I suppose I better get talking to you.
He's like, I'm gonna talk to you now because I'm here, but honestly, you're not my biggest thing I'm doing today. He says to Chesney, give Gemma a break. Are you surprised that she sees sickness everywhere with how Paul is? Which makes sense. Bernie tells Dev that she's not going to go to the police station now because she's got to go to Paul's speech therapy appointment because Billy's tidying the house for the bishop. No, he's meeting the bishop at the same time. Chesney goes back home and tells Gemma that he's sorry he was snappy. And then he realises that although he had told Joseph to go to school that day...
Well, he told Gemma to make sure that Joseph went to school, didn't he?
With Coxie the apple.
Oh, yeah, you got a shout-out,
I got a shout-out.
Also, I'm pretty sure that the words banging, bog standard and bobbins made their appearance.
Yeah, bobbins definitely
Bobbins did, because Evelyn was talking about bobbins.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe bog standard didn't. I think bobbins got a shout-out in today's episode as well. Something was banging, I can't remember what it was.
Anyway, it was the episode. So he's suspicious, and then he realises that Joseph hasn't been to school that day. He didn't go yesterday, and he tells him, get down here, you're going to school right now, you're not missing another second. It's already bad enough you've missed a day and a half, and it turns out he hasn't just missed a day and a half, he's been missing loads of time. Because Gemma's trying to hide this from him, and he's worried. She gets worried, and he can tell on her face. Chesney can tell on her face when he says, "I'm going to talk to the teacher."
Yeah, it makes me wonder why the school hasn't emailed them. I suppose if Gemma's been phoning the school up to say Joseph's sick, he can't come in, then maybe the school possibly didn't think that an email home would be required. But if somebody's going to be how long has he been away from school? Has it just been a few more than a day and a half, or? You just can't tell how long. In Coronation Street, time is meaningless, isn't it? But we're led to believe that a significant amount of school has now been missed by Joseph.
Yes.
We
get to see Paul in his hospital appointment, and
this is his therapist. Yeah.
And they're talking about this voice device that they've got.
Well, it's a bit like, with MND, that's what Stephen Hawkins had, isn't it? So he had his robo voice. And so I imagine it's something along those lines, because the nurse was saying, look, you can record some lines now, we can have them so it will sound like you. Otherwise, it will be a simulation of your voice. Yeah, I guess it will be. Yeah.
You can do it on your iPhone.
Yeah, you can just do it yourself now, actually, that's true. But pointed out on Twitter that maybe this was the moment that Summer brings out her ace robotic skills that saw her develop Summer's robot, among others, and help
Summer's
out with that.
robot says,
I haven't got Summer's robot here with me today. I was thinking of possibly bringing Summer's robot along, but you know, we started recording late today, and I didn't have the time. But it's probably a best idea if Paul doesn't just acquire Summer's robot's voice chips. Otherwise, he might inadvertently start saying how he prefers the old Summer, and that's just going to be embarrassing, isn't it?
Just awkward, isn't
it?
So he's saying, oh, that, you know, that sounds pretty cool. And then he offhandedly mentions the fact that he was coughing, and this is when the nurse looks very concerned, or the therapist, and says that I'm just going to get your MND nurse to come and check because your situation has developed or changed in some way.
Bernie's there with him at this point, isn't she? And she's looking a bit concerned about this.
And he gets, we'll just say, Paul gets this, he gets a peg on his nose and he has to blow into a machine. And it doesn't...
the machine says poor effort.
Oh. He has to do it again.
Makes it sound like he's been graded at school. It's like, come on, Paul.
And it's such a sad little graph, isn't it? Because you can see there's so much more space for it to go up, and it's just not.
Yeah.
So his lungs capacity is obviously at a concerning low level.
Mm.
Meanwhile, Bishop and Billy are having a little natter, and it looks like the bishop's basically saying, "Come back! All the horrible homophobic people have changed their minds now, and they're really, really sorry." And Billy's talking about how he wished he had the support of the church.
Yeah, he says that with everything that I'm going through at the moment, knowing that the church and the congregation are behind me would be a real boost. So
and Bishop's like, well, that's fantastic. Come back to work, because I'm not working on Christmas Day.
It feels to me like it's nice that the church have reaccepted him again, but literally the story has gone from sorry we're kicking you out to let's not mention it for a month or so to now you can come back, and it feels like there's a missed middle bit there.
They also skipped out the bit where there was an incredibly complicated conflict between Billy's personal life and his public ecclesiastical life.
Oh, good word. Yeah, he's just...
like, there's a massive rift between these two things, and I do not feel as though there's a way to merge them together in a way that would make sense.
And it's not like they want to keep religion out of this storyline, because Billy's beliefs, Paul's acquisition of a faith, Bernie's crystals, that has played no small... Well, I think it has been a small part, but...
Well, no, I think it's been
a
constant
theme. Yeah, a theme of the story has been faith. And to have Billy just be invited back to the church saying, sorry, well, just don't do it again. No more sneaky weddings in the church,
maybe
all right,
this
Billy?
is how they do it.
I don't know.
I mean, honestly, we're acting this as like it's completely out of the question that they would ever just brush something under the carpet, but church is pretty good at doing that kind of thing.
I just would have thought that Billy might have talked about it a bit more, or maybe...
If I was Billy, I think I'd be like, well, it's all very nice, but what do you really think? You know, I'm not coming back if you're going to be all...
Yeah, that's true. That's
like,
true.
Your marriage is an abomination before the Lord.
But we suppose we better let you in. I just would have preferred it if maybe Billy had been saying, oh, the church council are meeting about me today.
Also, if I was the bishop too, I mean, I don't agree. Obviously, I have my own personal beliefs about this, but just on the very basic fact of the matter that Billy, as a high-ranking official in the Church of England, went on a radio station and said, "Oh, the church doesn't support my marriage," and that's
what the church
how terrible
says is wrong.
Yeah, and the bishop's like, it was like ages ago. It's fine. I think he's just desperate for somebody to cover him on Christmas Day.
I think they've just got massive vats of soup that's probably about to go off, and somebody's needed to dish it out to the homeless people. There's probably, you said when we were watching it earlier, there's probably some just dying homeless people standing outside the...
standing out of Victoria Court flat. And Carla's just...
Why is there nobody to feed me soup?
Every time Carla comes out, she's like stepping over their bodies going, oh, it's so grubby. Somebody needs to come and do something about this.
Needs to give him Billy his job back so they can feed at these homeless people and get him out of my road. Yeah, I'm sure it's exactly like
Peter,
that.
they're clogging up the vestibule.
So yes, don't worry. The soup will soon be
flowing
dulled freely again in
lovely.
Weatherfield now that Billy has got his job back.
Oh, I do like soup. Anyway, so Billy then gets this contact from Bernie, she's saying to him, look, something's going on here. This isn't just a regular run-of-the-mill kind of thing. Something's happening and I'm worried, so please can you come? So Billy excuses himself and goes to the hospital so they can sit in there. Later on, Gemma's working herself up and thinking Joseph's ill and he needs to go to the hospital immediately to A&E. There's something wrong with him. He's got a headache. I don't know what's wrong with him.
Nothing.
And she's trying to get hold of Bernie and she can't find her, but she bumps into Abi, who offers to look after the quads so that Joseph can go. So then, after this test has been administered to Paul, the nurse says, I'm going to put in an SR1 form for you, for your PIP payment, to get it faster. And Bernie's like, oh, that's really good. And Billy's there at that point as well.
Yeah.
And Paul knows what this means. This SR1 form means that he has got 6 to 12 months left to live. And she's like, mate, it's not a prognosis. I'm not telling you that. But, Paul knows that this is what it's for.
Yeah, and Bernie's still trying to pep him up and saying, could be longer, couldn't it? She's almost in denial a little bit, isn't she?
This is so hard because she's trying to put a brave face on it and Paul's not having it. And he ends up rejecting her, really, and saying he wants to go home with Billy. He doesn't really want Bernie to come with them anymore.
That scene was really well done. They all had tears in their eyes, didn't they, when they were by the end of it. Paul's just had the rug completely pulled out from under him because, like Bernie said to Abi, I think later on, we were expecting this was going to go on for another 3 years, and I think the viewers had kind of guessed that it wasn't going to be dragged out that long. So this isn't particularly a surprise to me. What was a surprise to me actually was how for the whole episode actually they managed to avoid any silly noises or sound effects or wibbly wobbly cameras. This was all very, very raw, and it was they just relied on the script, the direction, the actors' brilliant performances to deliver the raw emotion that would be necessary for scenes like this. And you know what? They actually managed it. They didn't need that sound effect where Paul's going, everything's wibbly wobbly while he's been telling his news, and then people are like Paul, and then he goes, and then oh my gosh, they didn't need it. It can be effective. That was done really, really well for Sinead when she got her prognosis, but it's been overused, and I was completely expecting it today. Not needed. All of the stuff with in the bath scenes later, that could have been experimental editing overload, but it wasn't. It was just very plain and simple.
Well, Emma Lindley was the director for that episode, and
she used you say restraint.
It was plain, but some of the shots were great, like the side by side of Paul and Billy, when he was in the bath. What
I particularly liked about it, and I'm not going to renounce.
And there were some great frame shots.
There were some very well framed shots today. Well, I'm not going to renounce my love of stunts and serial killers and all that kind of drama. I love that stuff, but I think what made tonight's Corrie so particularly successful was the normality of it. It was in a bathroom. It was a nice change that I don't think we've seen that bathroom set before.
You're skipping ahead.
But yeah, I know. But the fact that this scene was just those two in a bathroom there, they couldn't move either of them, so it was just having a chat in the bathroom. They didn't need stunts or special effects or anything. It was just completely down to the dialogue and the performance and the direction and the banality of it, the real life relatability of it is what made those scenes so good.
Yeah.
But yes, I skip ahead. How nice is that?
Bernie, I felt really bad for Bernie because she's Paul was kind of snapping at her a little bit too, because she said thank you doctor, and she called herself a consultant as well, and Paul says that she's not a doctor, she's a nurse, and then Bernie says, well, I'm a consultant so I can promote her, and kind of walks off really sad because she's only trying to help, but she realises that she can't jolly him along, she can't make it better, and actually he doesn't even want to be with her. He wants to be with Billy, which must be really heartbreaking when you're a parent. Yeah. And you just want to comfort them.
Because, I mean, they are married now. But...
Yes, I know, but Michael,
parents will want to be with
always your baby.
I know.
At the hospital, Gemma's there with Joseph. She's doing that classic grabbing a passing doctor and, "You've got to see my child. We need you. And she's also getting this voicemail from Paul, who's told her that he's only got 6 to 12 months to live, and he feels really Paul feels really cowardly that he's just sent this to her instead of phoning her up or talking to her in person. But it's
interesting that there weren't any face-to-face Paul and Gemma scenes today, were there, I think? So it was interesting how they kept them apart, and maybe this is what's going to possibly snap Gemma back into reality when she realises she's spending all her time on this fictitious disease or illness or condition or whatever that she thinks Joseph has, and she's not getting to be able to spend her twin brother's final moments with him or final months with him.
This is possibly something that could be fixed, She can't do anything about Paul, but she can find out what's wrong with Joseph if any people would take it seriously.
I don't think that having Gemma in any of the scenes tonight would have particularly enhanced them. I'm not saying anything bad about Gemma. I do like Gemma as a character, but it worked that there were just a small number of actors in that scene.
Yes,
and I think I agree. But I think that we need fairly early on next week, I hope, for Gemma and Paul to have some heart-to-hearts together, because those two spark off each other really well.
So anyway, she gets this terrible news, and she's already feeling terrible at the hospital with Joseph, and back at the flat, Paul is saying, I couldn't tell her face to face, and Billy says, "Look, why don't I run you a nice bath?" And then Paul's like, "Oh."
Starts to get a bit amorous,
and Billy's like, "Are you sure after the news that you got today, what is this what you really want?" And he's like, "Yeah, well, why not? Now more than ever."
Paul has felt rejected. In the intimate sense in the past 24 hours. And
but it's also like, my body can do things now that, it won't be able to do. And also, I just want to forget what's happening.
Yeah, he says, "Well, we still can," doesn't he?
And Billy's like, "I'm going to get some wine."
I think he would hope that it would take his mind off the news, I guess.
Yeah. Bernie goes back to number 5. Everything's dark. No one's home. And she's bought herself
Abby's upstairs, isn't she?
Yeah, she doesn't know anyone's home. She's bought herself a little bottle of vodka and she's just drinking out of a mug. And Abby comes down and says, "Oh, sorry, Gemma's gone. I'm here looking after the kids because Gemma's gone to the hospital." And Bernie's like, "Oh, great. What now? Everything's going wrong." And Abby can see that she's upset because she's really in tune with people, Abby. And Bernie explains what's happened, and they have this really great heart-to-heart on the sofa about what they, about their feelings, and it's really honest and raw too.
Yeah, it was again very well directed. This was a dark scene, and not one of the Corrie dark scenes, which is let's film it in the middle of the day and stick a blue filter over it. This was a
dark obviously this is in the set so they can turn the lights down.
Yeah, but I think that really helped that it was dark and moody and
atmospheric.
Yeah, it was super atmospheric, and obviously Sally Carman is a fantastic actress. We've said so many times before. We've also bigged up Jane Hazelgrove, but I think this particular scene, I'm going to say, was one of Jane's best ever emotional scenes. She's great for the comedy, but she showed her acting chops.
She's so great
in this
both
particular dialogue.
I don't know how many scenes these two have had together.
No, not much.
And they don't really have much in common except for this terrible, horrible shared tragedy by which we mean Abby has lost her son when Seb died. She was saying, because Bernie's saying it feels like he's being taken away too soon. And Abby's like, not in a horrible way, but it did feel a bit like, well, my son was kind of kicked to death. And that was pretty fast. And Bernie's like, I don't even know how you process that. And then they start talking about the crystals, and she says they never really helped me, but I wanted something to make up for the fact that it's my fault that Paul's got MND.
When she started saying that, and that she blamed herself for Paul, I was kind of ready to go, oh no, here we go again, somebody blaming herself. But then when the dialogue came through in the next scene to explain it, even then I was like, oh yeah, okay, that works well.
You would do. Anyway, then we get in the flat. Paul's got himself in the bath, and then also in the hospital they're saying there's something wrong with him. Then we get Billy coming into the bathroom. He's come back from the shop and he's going, I got some anti-dandruff shampoo. And Paul's like, look, you're killing the mood, man. Why are you talking about that? Then he says, do you still fancy me? And the mood's just over, so he asks Billy to get him out of the bath. But when Billy leans over and starts to try to lift him, he pulls something in his back and he ends up lying down on the floor to try to ease his pain. And I was thinking, oh God, this is just the most awful, tragic, sad... They're going to start talking about bath lifts and he's going to say, we're going to need a full-time carer or something. This is going to spiral into this really dark, sad...
That's interesting. I was kind of, at this particular moment in it, I was thinking, oh, it's gone silly and slapstick and he's trying to pull him out. Yeah, and he's twinged his back, honestly.
Slapstick.
No, but I was thinking that's where it was going to go, but actually it was just a setup to get some superb dialogue. I didn't really like the moment of the twinge. I thought that there was we kind of skipped past a bit, but when Paul gets himself into the bath as well, that was a well done scene. Lots of flesh on display, I have to say, for a pre-watershed show. But he was Paul's or Peter Ash's performances as the character's physical capabilities have declined over the months have been brilliant, and this bit where he kind of just flops himself into the bath and the water's going everywhere. There was a bit earlier when he's kind of moving around and the shampoo bottle ends up falling off the side of the bath into him, and Peter just kind of runs with it and puts it back again. It was very different. I think that was
unpolished.
Yeah,
it didn't feel like slick. But that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be real and human.
Yeah, it was supposed to come
it's
across
like
as looking like a bit
struggling.
of a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's helped, and in the end, it just ends with the two of them kind of having a bit of a giggle about it on the floor,
both laughing at how helpless and silly.
Yeah, and not saying, "Oh, this is tragic."
That's the best thing about this story. It's just so fantastic, and it really is inspiring. I think.
Mm.
I would hope to be as
and then if you're facing
Paul.
something like this, you wouldn't want to feel like you were expected to just
laugh it off. Yeah.
But it's very refreshing to be able to watch a story where characters do.
Well, this is what I was saying before about the idea of a good death and sort of taking control and power back and not spiraling into despair and depression. Which is an obvious and real way and totally normal way to react.
Mm.
But the idea that there's a different way and it's possible to face it with grace and humour.
It's a bit like, when
like I said, inspiring.
10 or so years ago, whenever it was, and Hayley was on her last legs, and there was obviously an awful lot of tragedy there, but there was also some real sweetness, and they did the Roy and Hayley online diaries, didn't they? Do you remember there was one like when they were camping out in the garden, and there was another one when they went to the boating lake, and then you had the scenes where they're paddling along in Blackpool, and it's tragic but also really sweet. Even in was it Hayley's last week or the week before last? They had that little story where Roy has to go and get strawberries so that they can make jam, and it was moments like that made the storyline or stopped the storyline from just being a depressing, tragic, unwatchable mess. The Sineads wasn't like that. Sineads had some lovely moments as well, but I feel that was maybe leaning a little bit too heavily on the isn't this tragic side, and this they've got it absolutely right.
I also remember that Hayley was quite bitter and angry at times, which I think
yeah, she was. I mean,
was realistic and...
Yeah, I always remember when she shoved down the Christmas tree.
Yeah,
and she was like, why is this happening to me? I'm not
More
ready.
on
This
Christmas.
isn't fair. But you also had Hayley in her final tour of the street, going around and saying goodbyes to everyone, going up to Hayley and going up to Tracy and telling her exactly what she thought of her, saying her own kidney would reject her, and when she go to see Carla in the factory, that was fantastic. And it's those moments that help make these really potentially depressing moments watchable.
There's light in the darkness.
Yes.
It just feels really trite, but Corrie's avoided all of that kind of maudlin triteness. Somehow.
I wonder at what point it is just going to turn and be miserable, because Paul can't keep jollying himself along to the very end.
The thing is, I don't think he's putting a plaster over it. I think this is how he copes.
I would hope that he can still keep a smile on his face for as long as possible, because I think once he dies, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing what Jane Hazelgrove in particular pulls out of the bag.
I don't want
for after that, and Dolly as well.
Story.
I remember, when the moment when Abi finds out that Seb dies and she's crumbled in the hospital corridor. I think we're going to get something just on that line from Jane as well.
Anyway, we've left Paul and Billy laughing in the bathroom about their failed amorous. I'm just going to say this too. They had some incredibly frank conversations about sex that I don't think I've ever heard from gay characters in Coronation Street before. And I might have blanked it out because you know how much I love sex chat in general.
Yeah, Gemma is a bit of a prude when it comes to those kind of things.
Yeah, but it really did feel like you were just listening to somebody's real life conversation, because
it did.
They were just making jokes about raunchy things. And I know this this really got some homophobes peed off tonight. But it was just two gay men being human beings and discussing their sexual relationship with each other and having a laugh and making cracking jokes. And it's sad that winds people up.
It didn't feel like they had to tone the dialogue down to fit pre-Watershed. It felt natural enough, didn't it?
Yeah, but do you know what I mean? I don't think we've ever really had this kind of frankness with almost any couple, straight or gay, because we do have, the randiest couple on Corrie is obviously Sally and Tim, but theirs is always a bit campy and carry-on-ish and saucy, postcard kind of thing. And
this was a Jonathan Harvey episode, so we did get bits of that, like when Todd's trying to get into the flat later, and he's like, when you thought you were getting a drilling from Todd, this isn't what you were going to get. But it was just peppered in just the right amount so that it was still funny, but it wasn't drowning in it. And I was like going, okay, yes, you're hilarious. It was just really, really well done. Even the bit later on when Ed's there and he's like, I'm getting stiff.
Please. This is Coronation Street.
So I can't. What did they end up talking about on the floor?
I can't remember what they said, and they eventually realise that they're going to have to call for help and they're going to have to ask Todd to come. But before that, we cut back to Bernie, who explains to Abi why it is that she thinks that it's her fault that Paul has MND. She's saying, I was a party girl, I was partying through my pregnancy, and now Paul's paying the price. And Abby's saying, you can't blame yourself, and you can't fixate on this. It won't get you anywhere. And then she says, I'm supposed to be going to the police station. I didn't even go. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I'm coming or going. And Abi says, you just need to do what's right for you right now, and you'll work it out. Which maybe not the best advice. Maybe it'd be like, probably phone him up and say, I've had bad news. I
just love how whenever somebody's needed to just be a really, really good listening ear, Abby always happens to be just walking down the street, because it reminds me of the acid attack episode when she was the one
just a hero.
that was there to help out Daisy at the end. And if
I could be like anybody on Corrie, apart from the drug problem and the dead kids, it'd be Abby.
I bet that,
Because-
that Amy and Toya are like secretly
Jealous.
seething of her natural.
She's not even a shoulder volunteer.
I know. She's not a counsellor. She's not a shoulder volunteer. She's just a woman on the street, and look what she's doing.
But she's, she always knows what to say. She listens. I wish I could be as good of a friend to people that I don't even know.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, you doesn't even know her. She's just
There.
lovely. She's just there and lovely to
She's
everybody.
great.
And yeah, like you said, we don't often have Abi and Bernie scenes, and I think that was another thing that made this week for me. There were scenes with characters in places that we don't usually see, characters together that we don't usually see, like, Evelyn and Roy in the factory. That felt fresh and new, which made it all the more interesting.
Yeah, that's true.
The bathroom scene itself, that was a new scene. We never see bathroom scenes, or very, very rarely sets. And in Coronation Street, there was not dripping in it, but there were definitely bits there that just felt fresh and new.
That's true. Just
Using
mixing it up a
characters and sets that they've got in different ways, just to make it look a little bit fresher.
Because we know that back in COVID they had the problems where they had to have cohorts
the
and bubbles,
didn't they?
and you had to only have this set of characters could only be in scenes with each other.
Didn't have Evelyn with Carla in a scene back in COVID.
No, and obviously it really feels like it's taken a long time to shake that off.
And I'm not saying that, everything's back to normal now and this is going to be the norm and we're just going to have complete mix-up, because it seems that block filming has put an end to that until somebody can figure out how we could
mesh it a bit.
I very much appreciated all of that this week.
So, Billy and Paul
Yes.
are back, still
there. They haven't moved anywhere.
They've asked Todd for help now, and Billy's talking to Paul and he's saying, look, I do fancy you. We've got to be more honest and open with each other. And Paul says, well, in that case, I've got to tell you, I've been going to church and I've been going with Dee Dee. And he's like, it's much nicer church than yours. They're much friendlier and they do singing and stuff. More fun.
I'd quite like to see this. I thought that this moment was really, really special because this means everything to Billy.
Hang on, he says, I've been baptised.
Yeah, this means everything to Billy. And although I think I don't particularly buy the conversion of Paul that's happened so quickly and over the course of just a few scenes, it doesn't, you know what I mean? Earlier this summer, he's just like, you know what, I've decided I'm going to give church a go. I'm going to have a scene with Dee Dee where she tells me about her deep Christian faith that we've never seen before, and now I'm maybe going to believe that there's something there. I wish we'd have seen, I'd like to have seen these secret meetings. And maybe
we'll see
because
them.
Paul and Dee Dee have had a great relationship in the past. They were used to be flatmates, and I think that could have been an extra facet to this story, like Paul having these secret meetings and not being able to tell Billy about it. And if this had been the moment where he revealed, this is what I've been doing all those times when you've been wondering where I was, maybe that would have worked just as well. I don't know.
I didn't want to change any of this.
I was really happy with how it was. Because I enjoy Paul and Dee Dee together, and I think I would have found those scenes interesting. It kind of gave me a bit of a case of the what ifs. But maybe we will see more of it now, because despite the fact that he's mentioned Dee Dee, she's not really had anything to do with this story, has she? It's been a bit like David, supposed friend to Paul, but not really having much to do with him. Yeah, she was there at the wedding, but I'd like to have seen her be used just a little bit more than she has been.
See, this is what I'm wondering here. Is Billy going to go along to one of these church services that Dee Dee and Paul have been going to and go, this is much better church than my church, and then ditch C of E?
Yeah, ditch. Well, no, this is still C of E that Paul's going to, but you could ditch St Mary's instead of, what's a cool name?
I don't know.
St Bangers.
St Bangers?
I don't know.
All right.
Anyway. Maybe, because it has felt a little bit, like we said earlier, a bit weird that the bishop has said, well, it turns out that everybody's forgiven you could go back to St Mary's. Maybe if he does go to St Mary's and he realises that there is still an air of mistrust or something.
It's a bad vibe.
Yeah, if there's a bad vibe when he goes in there, maybe having him just become a vicar again of the cool church.
Yeah, the cool church.
That would suit him because he was a very bit of a raver himself back in the day, wasn't he?
I've always thought Billy's more the sort of clergyman who, instead of turning up with his little shirt on and his, and standing in a drafty empty church, he's the kind of guy that he pitches up with a jumper on and his guitar and says, "Hey kids, I want to tell you about a really cool guy that I fell in love with. And he's been there for me my whole life. He's called J-Dog." And this is a song.
We heard that, he had a wild teenage years and then he found God, and he doesn't come across. He's a little bit dorky now, isn't he, Billy? But
it's a bit.
Maybe if he were to re-find his true calling and go to a proper evangelical happy clappy or clubby bubby or whatever sort of
love
church.
a clubby bubby church.
Maybe that'd be nice, but I'd probably just miss St Mary's then, to be honest. I don't know.
Anyway, Todd arrives at the flat and Billy's like, "You need to break the door down." So Todd goes and finds Ed. Ed helps them to bust into the flat, and they realise they've got another task ahead of them.
I wanted to see the scene where Todd kicks the door down and Ed's like, "I just fitted that door for you a few weeks ago."
Yeah, so it's all really lighthearted and kind of carry-on filmish, and
it was, but it wasn't. I don't know how they did it. It wasn't at all cheesy.
Like naff.
Ed's reaction when he walks into the bathroom, like, "Oh blimey!" And Todd, he was just kind of smirking, despite the obvious tragedy of what's happening. Todd's smirks were totally within character and also not at all inappropriate because
it would have been heartbreaking if you were Paul and these two guys break in and then they're immediately like, "Oh, how tragic and sad and pathetic."
I think
they just was making a joke out of it, and it kind of diffused the
because
situation.
they know that Paul is okay with having a joke because he's tried to put a brave face on her and make her laugh out of the whole thing. So it was they knew that he'd be okay with it. I wanted to say as well. Well done to Peter Ash for just lounging around with not much clothes on in a bath in a studio. That was, that takes some guts, I think, to do that. That's what we were saying in the scene where he gets into the bath and they're just revealing an awful lot of Peter Ash's flesh. Not for the first time in the last few months, because we had the skinny dipping scene, didn't we? I bet he didn't expect this at the beginning of the year, that he'd be getting his kit off twice at least in Coronation Street. But yeah, they got the tone of it just right. Yeah,
it was. I thought this hit just the spot. So they're discussing about who's going to come out of the bath. And
who's going to come out of the bath?
Well, sorry, who's going to be lifted away first? And they end up saying that it's got to be Billy, so they can get more room to get Paul out. And Todd's smirking and saying, "Oh, clergy first, rent boy second." There were loads of like really close to the knuckle jokes.
Yeah.
And also Ed was like, "I'm not going to ask what you were doing in here." So yeah,
so
gay stuff. Ed.
I can't remember.
Well, he said it's not related to being gay. It's like, well,
yeah, was it Paul that said it's not a gay thing?
Well. What does that mean?
It was perfect because Ed was clearly squirming about being there, but because he's been close to Paul in the past, being his boss and everything, he knew that he kind of had to help him. And again, his reaction to the whole thing was spot on.
Me and Aggie
what it
used
should
to
be.
Shag all the time in the bar.
Oh yeah, he did say that a little bit, didn't he?
Oh, it was really funny. And they managed to heave him out of the bath, and Summer walks in right as he's being lifted out.
I'd said earlier when they were on the floor, I said, because it was feeling like it was going the way of like the comedy of errors, and I said, Summer should come in. But actually, the moment they chose for her to come in, where Billy was kind of hunched over, wasn't he? Because he just got up, but his back was still bad. Ed was round one end of Paul, Todd round the other, and just the formation that they've got himself into.
It was like a gymnast. Like kind of formation.
Well, it looked like they were playing Twister in the bath, didn't it? and Summer's reaction to it was perfect. Just having her walk in there and go, "What on earth have I walked into?"
And then Ed says,
good.
"I'm getting stiff," and she's like, "I'm going."
Absolutely perfect. How can they get so much laughs out of such a tragic scene? I don't know.
So
what else has been going on
at the hospital? Chesney and Gemma are there, and the doctor's saying, I want to speak
Really
to Joseph.
Story, this, isn't it?
I want to speak to Joseph privately. Then I want to speak to Chesney privately. And the doctor says to Chesney, look, this isn't helping anybody, especially not Joseph. There's 100% nothing wrong with him. We've checked everything, and he's completely fine. And
he's saying there's so many sick people in this hospital.
She kind of gives him a hard time, even though it wasn't his fault.
I think no, I don't think she is. I think she's just kind of saying you need to talk to your wife.
Well, she wasn't being horrible, but she wasn't being. See, So when I was younger, my family went through a really hard time, and I did skive off school too. And I said I was sick all the time, and my parents took me to the doctor, and the doctor said, she's.
Oh yeah, you had a bit of a Joseph time yourself, didn't you?
The doctor was like, it's just emotional kind of. We didn't really have mental. I don't think.
Mental health wasn't.
It wasn't couched in the same way as it would be now, but she was basically just saying she's not coping emotionally with what's going on.
Why did you do it?
Because I just was miserable.
What about? Just general.
It's nothing I want to talk about at the moment. Okay. But I'm just saying. I was quite surprised that the doctor didn't say, I think it's an emotional problem, not say a body problem that we can help you with. Because now I think they're going to have to work this out themselves, Gemma and Chesney. Mm. But I was just surprised that the doctor was kind of saying, get out if there's nothing wrong with you.
Have there been any clues?
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
From my own experience, I think doctors can say, this child is emotionally distressed.
Have there been any clues about what is actually getting at Joseph? I'd like to
say
that there haven't been.
Do you not think the fact that he on Monday he was playing a game with his dying uncle. He lives in a house with 4 kids, one of whom's got his deaf. Mm. His mum's there's so much turmoil going on in this poor kid's life.
I assume that he's not being bullied at school only because there's already a bullying story going on with Dylan and Mason.
If I was Mason, I'd give him a bit of a shove. Maybe there's no particular new trigger. I mean, it is Coronation Street, so there probably is something.
Joseph's just a perennially tragic waif of a child, isn't he?
Well, he's Chesney's son.
Yeah, that's the main thing.
He's growing
No wonder he's like this if he's got you for a dad, Chesney.
He's growing into his miserable phase.
Yeah.
It's much earlier than Chesney
Give him a dog.
So, anyway, I think that's it for that storyline. But basically, it doesn't get resolved, and Gemma's still concerned that something's wrong with Joseph. Bernie eventually turns herself in at the station, and Swain charges her for handling stolen goods, and she's not impressed that she turns up so late. And we finally end with Billy and Paul on the sofa, and they have an end of episode pre-bonk snog.
Yeah, Paul's still like Randy throughout the whole of it. Despite everything that's happened.
But he's still got borrowed time here.
I know he has, hasn't he?
Wow. Oh dear.
Okay, so
how rude and shocking.
Yes, that was. I think we've kind of gone over everything that there is to say about this. It just feels. It's speeding up now, isn't it? Easter or Britain's Got Talent Week is gonna be when it happens. Every time they have something uplifting and funny in this story, I kind of worry: is this going to be the last time? Is it just going to be downhill in misery from there? So. Hopefully there's still plenty more to come. What do you think about the fact that the Bernie laptop story is still going? Because it felt a little bit like a few weeks ago that had been kind of neatly put away in the box alongside Shelley, but it feels like they're still going to ring out a bit more drama there.
In a way, I'm glad they didn't, try to pretend it never happened. But it just feels like gilding the lily.
This was almost an example, because we've said in the Ryan storyline, they don't need all the extra soapy stuff with the relationship and the drugs and the pumping iron and the ovids. Let's make it a story about recovery from an acid attack. The best bits of this story have been seeing the effects on Paul and his relationship and all the extra frilly bits on top, which in this case is Bernie's criminal endeavours. Again, they're not really felt necessarily needed.
No.
There was the worry earlier on in the year that Bernie was really putting herself at risk by risking prison if Paul's going to, going to need her in the next few months. So I guess maybe it's going to go down that route. I really hope that they don't flub it, because this is such a really, really good story, and I want them to see it through and have something that we can look back and say that was a proper classic, brilliant story all the way through.
Peter out. That's the next story.
Are we moving on to the next story? We've said enough of that.
We've said literally all there is to say now.
So Peter Ash going out. Is Peter Barlow going out? Is he going to be sailing away to Italy next week? Not so sure about that. Well, this started off being the main story of the week until the Paul story took over it. But Carla is back from Spain. That Spain trip was a bit weird, wasn't it? It felt like Ali King is unavailable. Let's get her away and they'll come back. But wow. I obviously don't know.
Speculate.
I do speculate, but I don't know.
We never do.
It felt unusual that the character would disappear off to Spain when her husband is being accused of murdering someone. Well,
it sounds like the perfect time to go.
Get away from the drama. Anyway, it seems like Peter's not expecting her to come back, and the flats are dumb. Things didn't go well for her in Spain,
baby.
So yeah, everything's a bit rubbish for Carla. Peter's walking around in the street later, sees his dad, and nothing particularly happens there. But Ken says, "Do you want to come for lunch with me?" And Peter says, "No, I got to go and see Carla." So in the factory later, we got Sarah and Carla. Michael's been hired by Sarah at the factory, hasn't he? And Sarah hasn't broken this news to Carla yet, so she kind of shoos him away. And Carla says, "How's things been going, Sarah, without me?" And Sarah's like, "Honestly, everyone's on the edge. We haven't been able to pay them for close to a month now. They're not happy about this. As for me, I'm feeling really guilty about being involved in Stephen. I feel ashamed that I didn't know what he was up to and that I didn't tell everybody that he was clearly a little bit iffy." And basically, everything's a bit naff at the factory. Michael ends up walking in later on in the scene, and Carla's like, "Sarah, I can't believe you gave him his job back again." But then she gets a very frantic sounding call from Ken, because the main drama on Monday's episode is Peter's disappeared. Where's he gone off to? I didn't necessarily feel the tension in this, did you?
Did he not walk off with a bottle of
Yeah, we find out later that he's... Well, Carla thinks that he's taken a bottle of whiskey, but it turns out to be Simon, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm getting a little bit fed up of characters going missing and then usually ending up at the precinct or Victoria Gardens. I didn't really feel during this that there was anything to worry about, but Carla's concerned because what if he falls off the wagon again?
Ken feels to me like he just wants to be involved in drama.
Do you reckon? Is he stirring it up?
This is now the second time he's gone up to someone and go, "I'm so worried about Peter. He's going to start drinking again. It's just, but what? I'm just really, can I be in the scene? Can you pay attention to me for 5 minutes?" Because he did the same with Audrey. He doesn't normally run around telling everybody that Peter's going to drink alcohol imminently. I mean, it's not every day he runs a man over either. But do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just feels like he's going, "Drama, me please, Ken's involved."
Well, speaking about drama, there's a new and potential investor that comes around the factory later, this woman called Katie, and Carla obviously really needs her help at the factory because they have got no money coming in. But the subject of Stephen comes up, which is a little bit awkward for Sarah. But luckily, Carla's able to save the day. She's like, comes in full of pizzazz and's like, you want to be working for us. And Katie ends up agreeing to fund to buy knickers.
Well,
but the order needs doing in 2 days.
This was just a template of a million other underworld stories, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There's
only so often you can get excited about the factory being days away from complete collapse.
Well,
and then the workers have to work really hard.
Go on.
I was
going to say, the thing that makes me laugh about Sarah is that she's apparently a business genius until we see her doing something, and then she every time falls flat on her face because she's floundering in this meeting, and Carla breezes in and then gets Michael involved.
Yeah,
and then they bring him back on board.
Yeah. Basically, it's all hands on deck, but they need to get this order out in 2 days. later on, Carla and Ken go back to the flat, and this is where they find out that the whiskey is missing from her bottle of duty free, which it probably wasn't the best idea to be to a bag. Probably not the best idea to be leaving that kind of thing around when you're married to an alcoholic. But what can you do? They end up. He ends up just turning up at the flat, just absolutely fine and very sober. I think, has he been to another meeting? And he kind of admits to Carla that he's been going to quite a few. And she asks him about the missing whiskey, and he's got no idea what she's talking about. Maybe Simon would know. And it did turn out to be Simon, but not because he's following in his father's footsteps and becoming a massive alkie, but because his mate Kyle came over. Remember Kyle? No, we don't. I don't know whether we've ever met Kyle before, but it was his birthday.
He's got a really posh bottle of whiskey for him.
Yeah, exactly. He's giving Kyle an emergency whiskey present.
Simon drops.
Peter's a bit sarky towards Simon, isn't he? And this is when Simon takes the opportunity to drop Peter in it over his meetings with Toyah, which really works into Carla's paranoia about the two of them together. And Peter says, "Look, no, it's all innocent. Honestly, Peter just understands me. We're just friends. We just, we really get each other." And she gave me some really good coping strategies. "Oh yeah, really?" says Carla. "Does that involve jumping into bed with her?" She's clearly not at all happy with this little arrangement that Peter and Carla have got going. And then Peter kind of tries to change the subject a little bit by talking about what he found out about Stephen admitting that he wasn't going to kill Jenny at the end of Super Soap Week, and he started getting about teary and full of guilt about killing this guy. And Carla is distracted from her hatred of Toyah and starts kind of giving Peter a reassuring shoulder rub and saying, "Look,
jumped in a bath.
Look, everything's going to be okay. It's completely understandable what you did." And Peter's like, "No, we're both killers. I'm as bad as Steve." Well, no, not me and you, Carla. Me and Stephen are bad as each other. And then Carla has to go back to the factory.
No, Carla gets a text message, and he's like, "Oh, you're not even paying attention to me."
Oh yeah, he does, doesn't he? Yeah.
And then he goes, and then Peter turns up later with Toyah.
Yeah, and
And she's like, "I'm cool."
Cool. Toya's just
cool
being
girl.
Nice, isn't she?
I'm your shoulder.
End of the day, Carla and Sarah are back at the factory again. There was an awful lot of to and fro to the factory in this story on Monday, and Carla admits to Sarah that she's feeling a little bit guilty about suspecting Peter of taking the whiskey, and actually she doesn't seem so sure that she and Peter will ever get over this little bump in their marriage.
What happened?
Nothing. I think it's just the fact that Carla...
They just had an argument once.
Yeah, but Carla seems to have decided at the end of this episode that she doesn't know whether she wants to get over it with Peter, and she seems to have given up on him.
Literally, they had a couple of arguments about something, and she's like, "Oh, I've got to throw in the towel here. It's too tough."
Yeah, absolutely.
He's not back on the bottle.
It didn't work for me. That
he's not doing anything wrong. Is she really saying that she can't get him through this? She got him through so much other stuff.
He's had 23 years worth of drama as Peter Barlow. Surely this is just another little blip. I don't know. Anyway, Wednesday, Simon apologises to Carla and Peter while they're having breakfast for suggesting that there was something between Peter and Toyah, which was kind of refreshing that Simon didn't just try and double down on this and engineer some kind of massive fallout and suspicion from Carla.
I wonder how much loyalty has Simon got to Toyah, because he's been hanging around her quite a lot more. But yeah,
they were living together for a while, weren't they?
So why is he trying to drop her in it?
He's not really. I don't know.
Anyway.
Carla just says, "Look, let's just move on." Then she gets a message from Sarah summoning her to work for an all-important pre-work meeting. And Sarah's news for Carla is, "Sorry, you know that money that my uncle stole from you and then squirreled away and they've been trying to get it back? Well, it's all gone. They can't find it. He's put it in a bogus account and it's disappeared without a trace." Oh, what drama. Do you think they're going to get this money back, or is that just telling us, don't worry about it?
This is just saying, look, we know that you all are telling us that there's an easy solution to this, but there isn't, for soap reasons.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a panic. Workers still haven't been paid for a month. It's not small change, is it? What the hell are they going to
do? Carla's like, don't worry about it.
Well, it seems all they need to do is fulfil this order that this Katie woman is put in, and then they'll be hunky-dory. But I don't know. So later on, Sarah finds out that Beth's at the doctor's with women's problems, which Carla isn't too happy to hear about.
I hated this.
Go on, why did you hate
Well,
this?
because it's sexist. Because Carla's one of these women who, and I think, I don't know, I'm pretty sure it was a man who wrote this, and I can't remember who it was, and I'm not going to call anyone out, but Carla like going, oh, she's always pretending that she's got women's problems, and she doesn't. And then the insinuation that Beth's lying about it.
Well, Carla says women's problems is what we say to get one over on men. You can't use it on another woman, Beth.
Well, that's just, that's the line that annoyed me the most, because women genuinely do have problems, Carla. And women who don't believe them, who have never had a problem in their life, I think they should be booed into a hole.
So, it's just because Carla's a shriveled up old husk now, isn't it?
No,
She doesn't have women's problems.
I know that some women genuinely just don't have pains or problems, but unfortunately there are women who get the extra off you that you never had.
Well, Beth genuinely is just playing sort of skiving at this point,
this
isn't
is
she?
what
Because
makes it
she's
worse.
Getting fed up of not being paid for
the thing is, it just kind of, it feeds into this sexist trope that women's health is unimportant and all in your head or made up. I just hated it. I just really hated it.
Carla's decided that...
I don't find it funny, Michael.
What?
I don't find it funny at all.
I'm not saying I do
I know, but
either.
you just said that and you went, ha ha ha, women's troubles.
Problems, honestly, Gemma.
There's a serious problem, Michael, that women's health is not even studied properly.
I know. You told me.
Told you many times.
Yes, I believe you. Carla tells Sarah, look, this new deal that we've got on, we're going to get paid on delivery. So tomorrow, the factory workers are all going to be paid and it's all going to be fine. We just need to get them to get this order out. And then it will all be done. However, Izzy is feeling particularly revolutionary, isn't she, out there on the factory floor?
She invented a new colour for sports bras.
No, she's saying, like, right, we're getting out on the street, we're striking. Is this in the moment where she strikes? I can't remember.
Well, no, she's just saying, look, we're working for free. Sean agrees with her. I don't blame Beth.
Oh, yeah, it's later on, isn't it? Later on.
And then Carla lies and says, I've just spoken to the bank and Stephen's money's going to be put back in the account later. And Sarah's like, oh my God.
Yeah, but it's when Beth texts Izzy, I think it was, later on, to say, I've just heard from David that Stephen's money has disappeared into the ether. Carla's lying, down tools everybody. This is when Izzy calls for a strike and they all go marching out onto the street. There was also that scene in between there where Carla laughs in Toya's face. Do you remember that one?
No.
Toya's there in the cafe saying, look, honestly, Carla, I've got no designs on Peter. He just needed to talk to a friend. There's nothing going on between us. And Carla is just so rude and laughs at Toya for suggesting that she would be worried that Peter would be interested in her.
I do remember that scene because I put on Twitter that she's literally begging for Toya to steal her man. Well,
she is now.
Yeah.
But do you think that's where it is going? Is that Toya being
given
the fuel to say, well, I'm going to go after Peter then? But I don't know whether Toya is as petty as that.
No. I don't think Toya's going to be motivated. I think this is just one of those... It's just one of those, you know what I mean? What a sunny day it is today. The perfect day to put my washing out and then 5 minutes later it rains. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those things where... We're supposed to...
I really don't need there to be an affair between Toya and Peter, so I hope it all does come to nothing, honestly. So, back at this factory lot striking, Izzy's got a picket line out there, and in some ways it did really give me nice nostalgic feelings of Vera and Ida and Ivy and everyone going out on strike. But at the same time, I was looking at the fairly meagre picket line, which was Kirk... who was in it? Kirk, Izzy, Sally, kind of, and there was one more. Do you remember? But it was like 4 main characters that are out on strike, and it made me think, I wish that there was more to the factory lot. There's just nothing to them. That they don't have that great bond like the factory girls of the past did. It didn't feel like they were all united together. It just felt like a hodgepodge of characters that were what, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And then there were a couple of non-speaking extras standing at the side. the factory lot just aren't as brilliantly united as they used to be, and this particular story this week was just another reminder to me of that, and made me think that I wish the factory would close for good. It's not got the weight and excitement and interest that it used to. It feels like really, really old hat now.
It's felt old hat for a long time.
Yeah, so although I like a strike, it did really highlight the fact that there isn't that united front anymore with the girls. It's just a hodgepodge of characters that they haven't got anything else to do with.
It's not a team of people that are all friends or rivals or...
No, they don't go out for a drink in the pub together every lunchtime. But... Occasionally they do, but the thing when they had the classic band at the factory, like we're seeing again in the ITV3 episodes in 2003, you got Janice, you got Angela, you got, I can't remember who else, but they all just seem to be a great team together, and they want to go out for a drink together, and they share their gossip and everything, and that's not what we're getting with this lot. It's a shame, but I don't know whether there's anything they can do to fix that particular problem that I have. Anyway, Daniel sees this strike going on, and he goes and summons Peter, who offers to try and make the strikers see reason. He sits down on the step, and he's acting all cool, and he says, "Look, guys, I think you just need to listen to Carla. She's having a bit of a tough time at the moment." He's trying to make them see reason, and surprise, surprise, they have got no intention of listening to anything that Peter's got to say, and they kind of blame him for being part of the problem as well. He says, "Look, me and Carla were fooled by Stephen just as much as you were. We've all been taken for a ride by this guy, and actually, women and Sean, you need to reflect on your own behaviour when Carla was having mental health problems earlier in this year, when you were giving her this no vote of confidence, and that was absolutely despicable, actually." And he storms off, though they don't look particularly guilty about it. But he does save the day in the end, doesn't he? Because he goes to the factory, and the cafe, where he's talking and about the problem that's going on there, and Nina's there, and Evelyn's there, and Roy's there, and they all end up coming back to the factory together and banding together to help get this order through. And I love this. I said earlier that I liked having characters in unusual places, and seeing Evelyn like sit down at the sewing machine and roll her sleeves up and says, "Right, let's get these knickers stitched." I thought that was brilliant. Roy there in charge of the catering. Nina, we know that she's a great seamstress as well. I love this.
I didn't.
Didn't you?
I thought this undermined working class unions.
Why? Because they were being a bunch of scabs.
I know it's a bit of a stick in the mud thing to say, but really, honestly, yeah, they're a bunch of scabs. I don't think that Evelyn would have been a scab.
The problem was the characters that they got in to replace the striking characters were so much stronger. Like, is anybody really siding with Izzy and Kirk and Sean?
Yeah.
No, they're not the strongest of characters, are they?
Sean, I would say.
Sean, yeah, I like Sean.
I'm gonna say he's not popular.
No, but having the cavalry come in be made up of the likes of Evelyn and Roy, ones, yeah, but really, really beloved characters, I think you're going to say, oh yeah, good for them. And well, I was at least anyway. And even doesn't Sally come back because she's a little bit on the fence about whether to strike anyway.
Well,
Izzy turns up, doesn't she? After what was the reason? Did she go to try and get a job at an agency and then they didn't have anything for her? I can't remember. So she's like, oh, sorry, and comes back with a tail between her legs.
It did really, honestly, it felt a bit like...
It was a bit of something or nothing, really.
No, okay, you know what I mean.
So, Peter, towards the end of the episode, is saying, look, Carla, I am fed up of this. There's so much drama going on. It's being a soap character is pretty chaotic, to be honest. When did we last have a rest? We've had quite a lot of stories this year. Maybe we should go and work abroad for a bit. By the way, I just happen to have a mate called Mickey in Mallorca, and he's got a boat, and we could be going sail off into the sunset and work for him on the boat. And Carla's
there
not
is no
keen
way
on this.
There's enough room on a boat for Carla's wardrobe.
Do you reckon?
No.
She's not keen on this. Says, look, you can't run away from your problems. And Peter, for the end of the episode, throughout the rest of the episode, is trying to convince her that this is actually the brilliant thing to do. But by the way, Carla, the ship sets sails next week, so you need to get your skates on and decide soon. What would you do? it's difficult to compare to what you would do in real life, because in Coronation Street, it's absolutely normal to 1 week be living a perfectly normal life, and the next minute you're off living abroad. But in the real world,
who
would decide to just up sticks and go and live on a boat on the other half of the continent just out of nowhere?
Well, she says you can't run away from your problems, but I don't really think that's what that would be.
These two have, in a way, run away from their problems before. Like Carla's, she was running away from her problems in a way when she went to Spain, but even when she went to LA, going back a few years, she has, both of them have not been in Weatherfield permanently since they were introduced, so they know what it's like to go and live abroad somewhere. But I think saying next week, that really is pushing it.
Yeah, that's silly. But, if one day you said to me, Gemma, let's just blow this popsicle stand, let's go and live abroad for a year, or do this or that, I'd be like, yes, let's go. I'd love it.
Nothing really happens. But
you would never say that, would you?
No. Nothing of note.
You have a mortgage and a cat.
Yes, exactly. What would we do with the cat?
Cats don't like water.
Friday's episode was just Peter having a bit of a sneaky look at holiday things online.
Well, no, sailing.
Sailing, and Carla going back to the factory to find out that everything turned out all right in the end, actually. And Sarah says something to her about when she went to Milan and how she was in a bit of a bad spot, and some of the things she did to get to Milan didn't exactly show her in the right light, but maybe she should have stayed here. And I think it kind of gave Carla pause for thought a little bit and made her realise that she and Peter need to be a team together. And she takes him to an AA meeting, and that's, or a meeting, sorry, and that's kind of where it ends. It was a bit of we need to pay lip service to this story without really developing it today, wasn't it?
It was a bit weird that so Carla got from Sarah the idea that she needs to be more of a team with Peter, but Sarah was talking about running away to Milan as though
I can't remember what the segue was, but I think it was like my family needed me, or...
Well, the thing is, it would have been more pertinent to have brought up the fact that she split up with Jason.
Yeah.
Because he didn't want to go with her.
Well, Jason didn't want to go with Sarah when she went to Milan because he'd realised
that she's a nut job.
Well, yeah, she realised that she planted drugs in David's drawer at the salon.
But you think you would have thought that would have been the thing that would have spurred Carla to go, gosh, I don't want him to go off without me. I need to build this relationship before it buckles.
Yeah. So how did you find this story this week?
What?
No, go on.
No, what?
I remember you said you weren't a fan at some point. Did you grow to like?
Uninspiring.
Why?
It's a relationship story, and
so's the Paul and Billy one.
Yeah, interesting.
I think it was just that I did enjoy this because I think that Chris Gascoigne is superb, and I think he consistently puts in a star performance. So I enjoyed that. And
this more than I did. Can I say it like that? I want to really be invested in this.
I was certainly a lot more invested in this than I was the Daisy and Ryan story this week, which went from last week being really kind of cool and sexy and exciting to this week being a bit blur again. I enjoyed the fact that they went on strike. I thought that Toya's involvement was interesting, but still too few scenes of Toya here for my liking.
Do you see what I mean? What I was trying to say, that the whole point of the scene where Carla laughs in Toya's face is foreshadowing.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to say.
You're right, okay, yeah.
It's not like it was supposed to make Toya think anything. I just felt like it was like, you're going to look back on this and realise that this was where...
It felt a little bit out of character for Carla. I know that she doesn't always... care what other people think about her, and she will tell it to their face or laugh in their face.
No, I don't think that was out of character.
It's not. I don't think it's rare. I don't think it's common that she would be so rude to someone who's
done nothing.
Not really deserved it, and is maybe a friend. I don't know.
Well, it's a dangerous thing on Corrie though. This is everyone's like this, but she's kind of a member of your extended family in a way because of the relationship between Simon, Leanne,
exactly.
Peter, Carla, and then therefore Toya on the end of it.
The stuff with Stephen's money.
Weird.
Is that over? Is that gone?
I think it's Corrie just going, forget the money. We've written it so they can't get it back.
Is the factory going to be okay now that they found this one?
How can it possibly be? This is the thing. How can it... That was all their money. How can it possibly be okay?
But when you ramp up the drama and say £250,000 for Super Soap Week, massive whatever it was that Stephen took away from them, you are left with the problem of how are we going to solve this? And it feels like if the money really has disappeared and gone for good, it is fairly insolvable.
I don't know how businesses work. Does every year, like, Carla go, all the extras left over is profits for me, I'm going to put it in my own account?
No idea.
I mean, the 1%ers and stuff, do they get a cut of the profits every year?
I don't know. I really, that's the.
Do you know what I mean?
Really
This is, I hate getting into the weeds of this kind of stuff, but Coronation Street invites you to sometimes by putting the stuff in.
No, although...
If it had literally been like a suitcase of money that got chucked in the canal or something, we could have all have gone, oh yeah, that's gone forever. But because it's all electronic and transfery, whatchamacallit, you start questioning everything.
No, I get that if you're not interested in family shares and who owns what and will they make the order in time, that this didn't have that much to offer, or might not have had much to offer. But I think the combination of Chris and Ali being fantastic, Toya, the community aspect of everybody banding together to help out at the factory, and the community, the factory camaraderie of strike. I enjoyed all of that.
Okay, well, the elephant in the room here is that it's entirely possible that the vast majority of the people listening to this know where this is going. And I know where this is going, so I'm like, whatever, I know where this is going.
Okay, fine.
That's why I'm completely disengaged with the process of how it gets from here to there, I'm afraid.
The end point has somewhat been heavily hinted at, if not spoiled, in the press in recent weeks, but we can't.
This is why I don't like spoilers, because I'm like, whatever.
Well, Gemma, you get the Dylan delivering storyline. I quite enjoyed this week.
Dylan Deliveroo.
For a standard teenage bullying story, which has been done time and time again on Corrie, I'm finding myself fairly engaged with this. I think that Liam McShane and Luca Toolan as the leads in this are doing a great job.
Oh.
Luca is just fun to watch as Mason.
Yeah, he's scrote, isn't he?
He really, really is. He's despicable.
Displaying him really well.
Yeah, he is absolutely a love to hate kind of character, and he is proper camping it up in the similar way to how Callum was, and it's just fun.
You can tell he's doing a great job because the amount of social media comments of like, I hate Mason.
I think he's great. I'm finding it difficult to know, is he actually scary? Would I be scared of him if he was a teen? If at the same time as me, if he was bullying me, I don't know.
It's all very easy to.
He's very watchable, which is important because sometimes you get these.
Oh, he's not bland.
These young characters who are just whatever.
Yeah.
But he's got something about him that makes me want to see more scenes of him. So
he's no Joel.
He is no Joel the bland solicitor. That's very, very true.
Right, so on Monday, Dylan leaves the school and he gets a text from Mason go, where the party at?
Oh yeah, because he was supposed to have his party at George's last week, wasn't he? But he had
George is supposed to
find a new place for it.
Yeah. So George then makes a comment. Look at how empty that pub is.
Oh yeah, I can't remember what brings. It was a little bit shoehorned in, wasn't it?
Like, that would be the perfect place for a teen party.
It didn't need to be, because a few weeks ago on Super Soap Week, Dylan and Shaw and Mason were indeed in the Rovers, weren't they? So I don't know why they didn't come up with the idea of this themselves.
Well, to remind us, probably. Right, so later on, the pub is crawling with naughty teens.
Well,
all four of them, and
nobody else turns up. The fact that Mason had been saying to Dylan, "Oh, we got to find a new place quick. Everybody's so excited for this party."
To come to this party.
And literally,
all right, Mason.
Nobody else turned up. Well, it was Liam, it was Mason. We had Conch,
yeah,
which just makes me think of a chalet, like empty
Isn't
inside.
it a conch?
I don't know, but I would just imagine if you'd put your ear to his, then you'd just hear the sea inside, and then you add Layla, who I found fascinating, and I think possibly she's a one episode character. Because we see her in the pub, she's fairly nervous, isn't she? She come across to me as someone who is completely in over their head here. She wasn't the typical chavvy, leery, boozy girl. She was somebody who was nervous about speaking to her mum on the phone about where she is. Little bit, well, with the whole let's take Dylan to bed later, she felt to me like she was going along with it because of peer pressure, and she didn't really know what she was doing, and they didn't end up doing anything. I really want to know more about Layla. I think the actress that played her did a brilliant job in creating a character who was only there for a few scenes that felt like I wanted to invest more in. I'm guessing from your silence that you didn't have the same reaction to me.
I'm not reading the plot. So, Layla gets a call from Hemp.
No, that's her mum.
Oh, from her mum, of course.
Yes, I have written Hemp here.
And says, like you said, but you've just kind of like said half of this, so I can't remember what you said and what you haven't.
Well, I can
read
tell
this bit, yeah.
Yeah, she's on the phone to her mum saying, I'm at school, honestly. And Mason...
I'm here with Joseph.
Yeah, that's the giveaway,
school.
isn't it? Mason starts ribbing Dylan and saying, "Oh, that Layla, she wants to shag you. Yeah, she wants to take you to bed. I think that you should take her upstairs and show her around, if you know what I mean." So there's a bit of peer pressure going on here from Mason to Dylan, and obviously this is making Dylan feel somewhat uncomfortable. So he ends up in the back room with Layla, doesn't he? Is Layla, yeah? And she asks if he wants to go upstairs, and it's like, have you been upstairs before? But she isn't doing it in a sort of way. She's
hesitant.
Yeah, she is. She's like, she's nervous, he's nervous, and she leads him. She goes to lead him out the door, but then when she gets there, Conch and Mason are just listening in, laughing and making it thinking it's all hilarious. So yeah, they end up going upstairs. I'm going to pass back to you now. I'm not doing this whole story. This is where Sean and George come in. Well, they hear that there's something going on,
and they can hear something in the pub, so they go inside and they find these two naughty ones at the bar having a laugh, and then Dylan and Leela come downstairs and they don't look very happy, and it doesn't look like much went to plan. I'm going to say they saw a ghost.
Do you reckon?
That place is
Ghost
haunted
of Annie
as
Walker.
hell. How many people died in that pub?
I think that there's just something going on in the... how many people? Not many.
Well, what's the...
Ray Langton's died in that pub.
Ray Langton.
Maybe he haunted it.
Glasses, McGonagall. What's her name?
What?
Minnie
Caldwell.
Minnie
Caldwell's died
Caldwell.
in that.
Tony the fire lady.
Yeah. Edna. What's her face? You know
G.
No, not Edna G.
What the
morose Edna?
What's
her first surname?
The one who had a twin sister.
Yeah.
What's that? 5?
Yeah.
That's lots more people than died in lots of buildings.
Okay, I'll give you that.
I think they saw a ghost. I'm sticking with that.
No, I just think that there's a wave of some kind of anti-pheromone going around the street that's interfering with Paul and Billy's love life.
Right.
Stopping Dylan and Layla getting up to anything.
It's like the opposite of Cabin in the Woods.
If Sally and Tim haven't been able to get together tonight, this week, then you know that I'm right.
Let's revisit this next week.
Okay.
So
I think I'm onto something here.
Dylan and Sean see each other and Dylan runs off. And then later Dylan and Mason are talking in the precinct about what happened and doing it with Layla.
This was the really badly tinted nighttime scene that was clearly filmed in the middle of the day. I hate it. Why do you have to do this, Coronation?
Because Mason and Dylan have got to go home before dark. Mason warns him he doesn't want to end up like his dad.
Gay.
Right, I get it. I was like, whose dad? Is Mason's
Mason's
dad...
basically saying to Dylan, oh, you didn't get...
Shag a bird, or you're gay.
Or you're gay like your dad.
Mm-hmm. Dylan gets home later and gets a massive telling off from Sean. And he's like, you could think seriously about your future, and Mason's bad news. And Dylan's like, oh,
I love it when Sean gets the opportunity to have a go at Dylan. I feel so bad for him because he missed out on a lot of Dylan's childhood with him living down with Jamie and Violet. And now he's saying, well, I said to Violet that I would take you off of her to relieve the... I can't remember what. He was getting bullied at school there, wasn't he?
So now
he's
him.
kind of a single father, except he does have Eileen and George and that lot to help him. But I feel bad for Sean that he's maybe feeling a failure as a father. And I think Anthony Cotton, yet again, did a really, really good job of giving him a telling off, because usually he's just used for making these Jonathan Harvey-esque comments and swishing himself round at the bar and flapping the towel over his shoulder. But when he needs to do these kind of scenes, I think he's very believable.
I think it's a shame that we've not got to see any fun Sean dad stuff.
What?
You know, we've
family bonding.
We've seen Dylan get told off by Sean loads now, but we've not seen any of what was their relationship, you know.
No, because Dylan's been on the show for, 2 or 3 years now?
The only time I ever remember a positive interaction between Dylan and Sean was like when Sean had that boring dentist boyfriend who nearly was an exciting murderer, but he wasn't at all.
Yeah.
And then Dylan was like, hey, Dad, go off and shag your boyfriend. I'm cool with it. And that was like... I hope... And that was weird because though Dylan was in the more mature kind of position there, and Sean was like the one sloping off with a boyfriend.
I'd like to think that they can do more to develop this relationship, but the problem is Sean gets so little screen time.
Sean time.
So little screen time. They don't like to use him for that sort of thing.
Well, okay.
I hope that we get to see more of them in the future.
On Wednesday, Mason's like, give me money, Dylan. I lost my bet with Conch that you were going to shag Layla in the haunted bedroom where you can still hear it. If you're very quiet, you can still hear a woman being sick. I want paying back. And Dylan's like, no. And then Mason's like, yes.
Yeah, Mason's making out that he's lost a bet because of Dylan's frigidity,
it's his fault,
basically.
Yeah, exactly. And then, because Dylan is doing his paper round, Mason grabs all of the papers and puts them in a puddle.
Ah, the fiend.
And then, back at home, Sean's telling Dylan off. And Dylan's saying, I'm fed up. I don't want to go back to school. I'm ill. And Sean says, you better not be lying to me.
Yeah, because he's getting bullied by Mason and he doesn't know what to do. And I think he doesn't want to tell Sean that Mason's accusing him of maybe being gay, and he doesn't want to upset Sean. I think he's a fairly level-headed, sensible teenager,
but it's also, when you're a teenager, you don't think your parents can solve... You either think your parents can solve every single tiny problem you've got, or you're like, you can't help me with any of this. And Dylan's in the second category, like, you can't, there's nothing anyone can do.
Yeah.
After this, Brian comes knocking at the door, he's fuming, the papers have been soaked and delivered anyway, and Dylan says they got rained on, and Brian's like, you're fired, like he thinks he's Alan Sugar. Sean steps off the picket line to try to get Brian to change his mind about firing his kid, but he won't. Later on, Dylan apologises to Sean and said he needs the money for a school trip. And Sean says that I've not got any money. We're just going to have to tighten our belts and eat cheese sandwiches. And Mason finds Dylan on the swings later and he's like, give me my money. The end.
Yeah, and then the storyline just abruptly stops to give way for Paul on Friday.
So did they not have a banging party in the end?
No, they didn't, because Sean and George came and crashed it, didn't they?
Yeah, but they were doing a recce for the party. They could have come back later at night. But everyone's got to be really quiet.
I think there would have been a bit of a giveaway, really.
Well, I don't see how they thought they could get away with having a massive party. Ken Barlow's very vigilant.
I think that all the teens of Weatherfield need to turn against Mason and Dylan and give them a good beating up, because the party of the decade didn't happen.
It's such a shame they don't have the community centre or the mission hall for a good old teenage bop.
I know. I feel so bad for Sean that he hasn't got his money. He's just
Sean?
Sean. He's not got his job. Did he end up going to? I can't remember whether he said whether he went to the job centre and got anything in the end. But yeah, he's really. I really feel for him that he hasn't got 2 pennies to rub together at the moment. His pub job's gone, his factory job's gone. He's got this kid to bring up that he told Violet, "I will look after him," and now
Violet
he can't.
should send him some money.
I think that it wouldn't be a bad idea to have a phone conversation between Sean and Violet, and maybe we're not going to get Jenny to come back to play Violet on the phone, but it feels like she should be acknowledged that she exists. It's like she's been forgotten about now.
I can sympathise, but I would like to see more of it than just Sean saying. We've basically just had like 2 or 3 scenes of Sean saying, "Dylan, we are poor."
I don't think we need more than that, because Corrie characters being poor is such an overused trope. I don't necessarily need to see the misery that puts them in.
It doesn't work. It doesn't feel realistic these days, because everyone owns a business or they've made themselves poor through really weird personal choices that they've made. Like, oh, I know that I'm supposed to be the archdeacon and live in a fancy house, but I've chosen to get a heat pump and put in, and now I've got to live in this flat. And oh, I know that we could have been the face of Freshco's and earned thousands of pounds, but we decided not to sell our morals.
Yeah.
Like, and this, this is a actual case where Sean is broke through no choice of his own, but all we're getting is a scene where Dylan doesn't want to eat a cheese sandwich and a scene where he can't go on a school trip.
It's fine. It's working for me. What I'm also kind of was interested in with this one this week is I didn't expect it to turn into a kind of a teenage sex story, because the last we saw of this, I think it was about vaping, wasn't it? And Liam seems to have disappeared as a puff of vape smoke himself. He doesn't seem to be in this at all now. It's just about about Dylan and Mason. But yeah, it's all about Dylan going to bed and trying to prove his manliness to this bully. I'm wondering whether it is going to turn out that he's actually gay, and he could. It might be quite an interesting story for me if he goes down the route trying to fight it and trying to say no, I'm not gay, to prove to Mason. But then if he is, then he could come out and say, well, yeah, I am gay like my dad. I am being the person that you're making fun of me for being, and actually I don't care, and that's who I am, and I'm proud of it. And I think that could be quite a positive end to the story if he turns out that he's gay and he accepts it and he says, well, you can't get me now, Mason, because I am what you say I am. So
I also think there would be a probably real cheesy scene where all the teens stand behind Dylan and say, we like it that he's gay.
Yeah, Mason, I think that could work nicely. It's
not cool to be homophobic anymore.
I think that could be interesting. I was pretty intrigued by this story. I wasn't expecting to be. This is one of the stories that when I saw was happening, I was like, oh, okay, whatever. But yeah, it's piquing my interest. Do you like this one, or is it just passing you by like the factory one?
I want there to be more ghosts.
No, Gemma, serious question.
Yes.
Are you enjoying this story? Is it all right?
It's okay. Yeah.
It's no Peter Ash acting his socks off as an MND
no Peter Ash
sufferer.
In the bath.
No, but I think it's fine. I think it's good.
All right, you said it.
Okay, fine.
Ryan and cheating, come on.
Ryan and cheating. So this one again just fell flat for me this week. It's just coming in waves. There can be weeks of this story that are fantastic.
That you find sexy.
Yes. And exciting and mysterious and risque and all of that. And then there's just weeks like this that that didn't bother me. They talking about Denise's house being up for sale, right? Daniel and Daisy are towards the beginning of the week. There were some nice scenes with Jenny. I'm looking at the notes here and I'm thinking I don't remember much of this. This was so not the highlight of the week for me.
Well, Jenny's making sure that Daisy's getting herself into a situation that she wants to be in, because she is moving in with Daniel, even though she's told
Jenny knows
that she loves Ryan.
That actually that reminded me, there was that nice bit at the end of the scene where they both, Jenny and Daisy, tell each other they love each other.
I like that a lot.
Sweet. I did enjoy that. That's true. We find out that Daisy has resigned from the bistro. And she also tells Ryan about the Red Bank flat that she might be moving into, and he doesn't really know what to say about this, but he wishes her luck.
She's basically drawing a line under it, isn't she? Yeah. She's like, I'm not working here anymore, and I'm moving somewhere fancy, and we're buying it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the rest of the story is about the return of Crystal, which I wasn't expecting.
No one saw this coming.
No, and it didn't feel like it was needed. Basically,
Crystal just seems much less of a personality than she was the first time she was in it.
Well, the last time that she was in it,
I know she was a cow.
I remember that. Yeah, she was a cow, and she marches into the Rovers when she feels like she's been set up, didn't she?
Yeah.
It was
But she's like really mousy and timid now.
She just seemed like kind of a nice girl now, and for
what's
whatever
happened to
reason,
her?
she's seen Ryan's
Do you think
video online,
something-
and now she realises that he is actually a sweetheart, even though she didn't seem to have any interest in him back in the
Do you think
summer.
something terrible happened to her in Ibiza?
Well, she was in a coma for a bit, wasn't she? But maybe that's what's changed her mind. Maybe it's given her a new outlook on life. Yeah, maybe. Anyway, Ryan ends up spending the night with Crystal.
So
There was
why was she in a... What happened?
Well, it was when Daisy was pretending to be Crystal, and then it
yeah.
turned out that Crystal couldn't possibly have been texting Ryan because she's in a coma. I can't even remember what it was that put her in that state, but I don't think it particularly matters. But
I totally forgot about that.
I enjoyed the scene on Wednesday when Carla was bad-mouthing Crystal without realising that she was actually standing listening in, and Carla didn't apologise, did she? She
was
just
great.
like, well, yeah, Crystal, you are a slag. Bye, I'm off to work.
Yeah, she
That
didn't
was
go,
fun.
oh, she's behind me. Sorry, Crystal.
No.
And she's like, yeah, you might as well hear it.
No, so she's not a fan of Crystal. Peter tells Ryan that she seems quite good actually, so get in there, my son. And then we have...
Well, Daisy's got her nose put out of joint when she sees Crystal and Ryan together in the cafe.
Yeah. She's worried that that Ryan's going to tell Crystal that Daisy was impersonating her earlier this year.
Well, she's
And
also jealous.
Daniel says, no, there's no reason that they're going to dredge that up. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's totally jealous because she wants to be with Ryan.
She tells Daniel that she's worried about the catfishing because she wants to deflect away from the fact that she's just jealous. But she's probably also rightly worried that this might come up in conversation.
It's so funny how this can swing from being interesting to dull. Did you? I don't know.
Well,
maybe
no,
did you enjoy this at all this week?
It was okay. It was kind of treading water a bit, and I'm just really surprised that Crystal is such a mouse. Now.
Yeah.
It would have been good if she'd come back and been bombastic and in Daisy's face and said, I think something's going on between you two and I don't know what it is, or...
Yeah, it wasn't
keep
like
away
a big
from him.
splash. Guess who's back? You didn't see this coming. It was like,
I was like,
okay.
is that even the same actress?
Yeah, I couldn't remember what she looked like, to be honest.
But because she acted so completely differently.
Maybe there's more to come with this next week. I don't know. We had a couple of scenes of Stu, didn't we? Because it turns out through a meeting with his PI that Dom did spend some time in German prison a couple of years back.
Not German prison.
Yeah. And Dom says, you need to pursue this. This is good. You need to find out more details.
See,
fortunately, we didn't get to find out any more about that this week, but we know it's going to come at some point.
This is how much I overthink things, right? I have thought about what it would be like to be in prison in a different country before. And I think my takeaway is you get to learn a language for free.
Yeah. Don't even need to do Duolingo, do you?
No. And that costs money.
You get a very specialised vocabulary set, I suppose.
Well,
like, not many people learning a language learn the terms for shank or wifey as one of their first pieces of vocabulary. It's more my name is, I live in. But I suppose you don't need to learn I live in when you're in prison because everyone lives in the same place.
Do you think that the German for shank is ein imprisoned knife and toothbrush?
I don't know, shank sounds like quite a Germanic
Shank.
word as it is anyway.
Yeah, shank is the word for my
I know
love.
that the word shrank in German I think means covered, maybe. Am I remembering that rightly? I'm not sure. But anyway,
it's my shank.
Nothing was happening there. My shank
say?
shrank. Yeah, that's where you keep your nose, isn't it? If this had been on Friday's episode, I would have been concerned that maybe it was building up to next week appearing, but I don't know, maybe we'll get a bit of respite from it for the time being.
Do you think that Stu's gonna test Dom by going, Auf Wiedersehen, pet, and see how he replies if he says something in German?
Yeah. Well, that is the sort of thing they say. And then we had
Shoulder
a bit
volunteer.
of Amy today, didn't we? Who's getting a little bit too involved in the shoulder volunteers, getting a little bit.
She's getting emotionally invested
Yeah.
in it. So in the shop, Amy hands Summer a flyer about anti-spiking protest that she's going on next week, and Summer's going to help her. And Dev's saying, you've got to do an extra shift, Amy. And she says, no, I've got shoulder volunteer to do. So they have this meeting.
They have a get together in the community
centre,
don't they?
And then this
Summer and
woman
Amy.
comes in late, and she's trying to look for somebody to help her, and Summer shoves a flyer in her hand, or one of them does, and then someone's like, oh no, how embarrassing, I spelled accommodate wrong. Well, no.
I'm going to say accommodate is on the year 5-6 keyword spelling list from the government.
I spell everything wrong all the time.
Everybody should be able to spell that word if they've been through the primary education
I can't
system,
spell
so,
for toffee,
you know.
but I know how to use a spell check sometimes.
Yeah.
Right, so the woman kind of like, they're just kind of gossiping, and the woman's like, well, I'm off.
Oh, get this, accommodate spelled wrong. I never would have thought
she's thinking, I don't want to hang around with nerds. And Amy goes like, oh, Summer, she's run off now and she needed our help and it's your fault for talking about grammar.
Maybe the woman heard it and she realises that she spelt accommodate wrong
She's
somewhere.
like, I've got to go home and
She's
check
like, oh
it.
no, I run a B&B and I've just had the sign maker put a big flashing
Oh,
sign
I've
up. I
got
think
to
I
go.
spelt it wrong and I need to get back in
So
time.
embarrassing. Summer says, you've already done enough do-goodery, but it's not enough for Amy.
Yeah, so Amy's getting...
Obsessed?
obsessed with helping.
Oh.
It's not the most inspiring story, and I do love Amy, but there's not much to get my teeth into with this yet. It feels like it's building up to be another issue story, which I've kind of had my fill with at the moment. And there's going to be this anti-spiking protest, is it, or something next week? How do you do an anti-spiking protest? You're marching down the street saying don't strike, spike, don't spike, and people go, oh, all right then.
I think you squirt stuff in
plan.
people's drinks and go, huh?
How do you
like it?
Yeah, tasting your
like
own
that.
medicine.
Literally.
I've got every faith in Elle to be able to deliver a good story
But
if the meat of the story is interesting enough, and I'm not convinced it is yet.
The anti-spiking protest feels like it could turn into the blimmin' upskirting stuff, where they all just stand with a poster and go, this is wrong.
Oh yeah, they did,
and everyone
didn't they?
says, yeah, we know it is. We know it is, though.
Yeah. What's happened
Like, what
to
are you
Lorna
doing?
Crawshaw?
I don't know.
I think that she needs to be there on that protest.
I know
Since
it's really
Daniel ditched
important.
Weatherfield High, she's not been needed.
I know it's really important and stuff, but I just can't help but think that a protest is not going to do anything. But hey, what do I know? I can't be bothered.
And do viewers really want to be preached
go on
at
the
about that? I don't know. Maybe I've got no idea. I saw that in the Corrie news this week there was a new Amy storyline coming up, and I assume this is it. So a storyline is more than just there's a protest going on, but I have literally zero idea about what is going to happen with Amy.
I think what I'm trying to say about it is not that I'm not trying to say in real life blah 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 you shouldn't protest or anything. I'm just saying in Coronation Street every single protest just turns into the protest story. It's the same as every single factory storyline. It's just like a template of 4 or 5 different scenarios, and
yeah,
it
get
just
a ragtag
feels
bunch
like
of bare characters
everybody
to join
turns
in.
up and somebody says, I like spiking, I'm never going to stop. And then Amy's like, how dare you? And they have a tussle and she gets arrested. You know, like...
I don't want to give up on this yet. I'm gonna give it a couple of weeks chance. Could be good. I am very pleased that Amy is possibly going to be in the spotlight with the story again, because I think she's great. She's fab. I really enjoyed her in the rape storyline earlier this year.
That's
she's
a strange turn of phrase.
I thought it was good
I
to
think
see
everyone
her,
knows what you mean.
have a storyline.
Everyone knows what you mean. It's just funny when you put it like that.
Yeah, so I'm willing to give it a shot. So I think was Paul the character of the week for you this week? Are we gonna say Paul, or are we gonna say Billy for being a good supportive husband? Or are we gonna say Bernie? But it's kind of got to be someone in that story really that gets the gold sticker this week, isn't it? I think it's Paul.
Paul.
Just being able to put a smiley face on a pretty dire situation.
This
Brilliant
story
performance
is
again.
if you could sum up the story in one object, it would be the world's biggest sticking plaster with a smiley face on it.
Yeah. Is that just plastering over the cracks of Coronation Street, which people are saying is not as good as it once was, but at least
great.
It's got this story.
Friday's episode was one of the best episodes there's been for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said at the beginning, the fact that I went into today's episode just not having any idea that I was about to watch something quite so special made it all the more enjoyable to watch. So Paul's my character of the week, and I am going to give this week's episodes 4 fit firemen with their nozzles in hand out of 5.
Goodness gracious me.
Two hauling Paul out of the bath, and 2 getting old big Billy the Vicar off the bathroom floor.
I'm gonna give this 4 bowls of whiskey covered cereal.
Lovely.
I think that should be your breakfast of choice.
You reckon? Yeah, good week. Well done, Coronation Street. Long may it continue, but who knows? I mean, maybe next week Stu's going to be the main story.
No, listen, I'm still hopeful that at any point... This is the thing about Corrie. They can do it both ways around, though. They can take your favourite characters and a dream scenario and go with it. Or they can go, hey, you know these people that you don't care about and a story that it sounds like you hate? This is actually going to be your favourite story of the year. Like with Paul's MND story. I could not have been less interested in watching this poor man die. And not that I'm interested in watching him die, but you know what I mean. And the character of Paul, a fairly uninspiring side character.
If you just said to me at the beginning of the year, you got a Paul storyline, you got a Daisy storyline, you got a Rover's storyline.
Which one's the best?
Which one's going to be the best one for you at the end of the year? I would have never have said Paul. So congrats everybody involved.
But they've just turned this into such a fantastic.
Yeah, it's very
And it's weirdly uplifting how he's coping with everything. But I'm just waiting for the inevitable crash